The morning Clara Whitmore discovered her brother had sold Daisy, the chestnut mare she had raised from a foal, was the same morning she realized hatred could burn hotter than the Texas sun beating down on their struggling ranch outside San Antonio in the summer of 1878. She stood in the empty stall, her hand pressed against the rough wooden planks where Daisy's nameplate used to hang, and felt something crack inside her chest. The smell of hay and leather filled her nostrils, but the familiar warmth of her horse's presence was gone. Clara was 22 years old, and in her entire life, she had never felt such a mixture of rage and helplessness coursing through her veins. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the stall door, knuckles white against the weathered wood. "Thomas!" Her voice echoed through the barn, sharp and demanding. "Thomas Whitmore, you show yourself right now." Her brother emerged from the house, his shoulders hunched in a way that told her everything she needed to know before he even opened his mouth. At 26, Thomas had the same dark hair and gray eyes as Clara, but where her face held determination and strength, his showed only weakness and shame. He would not meet her gaze as he shuffled toward her, his boots kicking up dust with each reluctant step. "Where is my horse?" Clara's voice was deadly quiet now, more frightening than her earlier shout. "Clara, I can explain. Where is Daisy?" She took a step toward him, and he actually flinched. Good. He should be afraid. Thomas ran a hand through his greasy hair, and she noticed for the first time how disheveled he looked. His shirt was stained, his pants wrinkled, and he smelled of whiskey and cigarette smoke. "I had debts, Clara, serious debts. There were men who were going to hurt me, maybe kill me. I did not have a choice." "You did not have a choice?" Clara's laugh was bitter and sharp. "You had plenty of choices, Thomas. You could have chosen not to gamble away every cent Papa left us. You could have chosen not to drink yourself stupid every night at the saloon. You could have chosen to be a man instead of a coward." "They were going to kill me." Thomas's voice rose, defensive and whining. "What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to protect what was ours. That horse was mine, Thomas. Mine. I raised her from the day she was born. I trained her, fed her, cared for her. She was not yours to sell." Tears burned in Clara's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Thomas looked down at the ground, scuffing his boot in the dirt. I know, and I am sorry, but the money is gone now. I paid off Dutch Harrison and his gang. At least we are safe." "Safe?" Clara stepped closer to him, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You think we are safe? Papa left us this ranch, Thomas. It was supposed to be our future. And you have been selling it piece by piece to feed your gambling habit. First the cattle, then the equipment, now my horse. What is next? Are you going to sell the ranch out from under me too?" Thomas finally looked up at her, and she saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or fear. "I would never get out of my sight." Clara turned away from him, unable to look at his weak, pathetic face any longer. "Get out, before I do something we will both regret." She heard him shuffle away, heard the door to the house slam shut, and only then did she allow herself to sink down onto a hay bale and let the tears come. They were hot and angry, streaming down her face as she pressed her palms against her eyes. Daisy had been more than just a horse. She had been Clara's companion, her confidant, her escape from the hardship of trying to keep the ranch running with a brother who cared more about cards and whiskey than about their family legacy. Clara cried until she had no tears left, and then she stood up, wiped her face on her sleeve, and walked into the house. She found Thomas passed out on the sofa, an empty bottle on the floor beside him. Looking at him now, she felt nothing but disgust. How had they come to this? Their father had been such a strong, proud man. He had built this ranch with his own 2 hands, had taught both his children to ride and rope and work the land. He had died 3 years ago, leaving the ranch to both of them equally, trusting them to carry on his legacy, and Thomas had failed him spectacularly. Clara went to her room and pulled out the small tin box where she kept her own money. She had been saving for years, doing laundry and mending for other ranchers' wives, selling eggs and vegetables from their small garden. It was not much, but it was hers. She counted the bills and coins carefully. $47.30. Not nearly enough to buy back a well-trained mare like Daisy, but maybe enough for something. She needed to know who had bought her horse. She needed to see if there was any way to get Daisy back. The thought of her sweet mare being mistreated or worked to death made her stomach turn. Clara changed into her best dress, the dark blue one with the white collar that she usually saved for church, and pinned her long dark hair into a neat bun at the base of her neck. If she was going into town to ask questions, she wanted to look respectable. San Antonio was bustling when she arrived in the wagon an hour later. The streets were crowded with people going about their business, dodging horses and carriages and the occasional stray dog. Clara tied up the wagon outside the general store and took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she had to do. She was not used to asking for help, not used to admitting that her family was in trouble. But for Daisy, she would swallow her pride. The saloon where Thomas did most of his gambling was called the Silver Spur, and it was exactly the kind of establishment Clara's father would have forbidden her from entering. But Papa was gone now, and Clara was desperate. She pushed through the swinging doors and stepped into the dim, smoky interior. It was early afternoon, so the place was not too crowded yet. A few men sat at tables playing cards, and the bartender looked up in surprise when he saw her. "Ma'am, I do not think this is the right place for a lady," he said, wiping down the bar with a dirty rag. "I am looking for information," Clara said, keeping her voice steady and her chin high. "My brother sold a horse to pay off gambling debts. A chestnut mare with a white star on her forehead. I need to know who bought her." The bartender's expression softened slightly. "That would be Thomas Whitmore's debt then." "Yeah, I heard about that." "Dutch Harrison was real unhappy about having to wait so long for his money. Your brother is lucky he is still breathing." "Who bought the horse?" Clara pressed. "Please, I need to know." The bartender scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Well, now let me think. Dutch sold her at auction just yesterday morning. There was quite a bit of interest, actually. She is a fine-looking animal. But in the end, she was bought by a cowboy passing through. Tall fellow, quiet type. He paid cash, which impressed Dutch. I think his name was Cole. Cole Brennan." Clara's heart sank. A cowboy passing through. That meant he was probably already gone, taking Daisy with him to God knows where. "Do you know where he went? Where he is heading?" "Sorry, ma'am, I do not ask those kinds of questions, but I did hear him mention something about needing good horses for a cattle drive. Could be he is still in the area, gathering supplies before heading north." Clara thanked the bartender and left the saloon, her mind racing. A cattle drive north could mean anywhere from Kansas to Montana. How was she supposed to find one cowboy and one horse in all that vastness? But she could not give up. She would not give up. Daisy was out there somewhere, and Clara would find her. She spent the rest of the afternoon asking questions at every stable, livery, and feed store in town. Most people had not heard of Cole Brennan, but finally, at the last livery at the edge of town, an old man with a gray beard nodded when she mentioned the name. "Cole Brennan? Sure, I know him. Good man, honest. He bought some feed from me yesterday, said he was camping out by Silver Creek for a few days before moving on. Said something about breaking in some new horses he had acquired." Silver Creek was only about 5 miles from Clara's ranch, a small waterway that cut through the hills and provided good grazing. She could ride out there tomorrow morning and try to find this Cole Brennan, try to convince him to sell Daisy back to her, try to make things right. She drove the wagon home as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Thomas was awake when she arrived, sitting on the porch with his head in his hands. He looked up as she climbed down from the wagon. "Clara, I really am sorry," he said, and for the first time he sounded like he meant it. "Sorry does not bring Daisy back," Clara said coldly, "but I found out who bought her. A cowboy named Cole Brennan. He's camped at Silver Creek. I'm going to ride out there tomorrow and try to buy her back." Thomas stood up, hope flickering across his face. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No." Clara's voice was firm. You have done enough. I will handle this myself. She went inside and made herself a simple dinner of beans and cornbread, ate it in silence, and then went to bed. But sleep did not come easily. She lay awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what she would say to Cole Brennan. How did you convince a stranger to sell back something he had bought fair and square? What could she offer him when she barely had $47 to her name? Clara rose before dawn, dressing in her riding clothes and braiding her hair in a long plait down her back. She saddled up Thunder, the old gelding that was the only horse they had left, and set out for Silver Creek as the first light of morning began to break over the horizon. The air was cool and fresh, and the sound of Thunder's hooves was the only noise except for the occasional bird call. She found the camp easily enough. There was a small tent set up near the creek, and she could see 3 horses grazing nearby in a makeshift rope corral. Her heart leaped when she recognized Daisy's distinctive chestnut coat and the white star on her forehead. The mare was there, safe and sound, and Clara had to resist the urge to run to her immediately. A man was crouched by the fire, cooking something in a pan. He looked up as Clara approached, his hand moving instinctively to the gun at his hip before he saw that she was a woman, and relaxed slightly. He stood slowly, and Clara got her first good look at Cole Brennan. He was tall, as the bartender had said, probably around 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the lean, muscular build of a man who spent his life working outdoors. His hair was dark brown, almost black, and fell to just above his collar. He had strong features, a straight nose, and a jaw darkened with several days' worth of stubble. But it was his eyes that caught Clara's attention. They were a striking blue-green, the color of the ocean she had seen once as a child, and they were watching her with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Can I help you, ma'am?" His voice was deep and pleasant, with a slight drawl that suggested he was from somewhere further south, maybe Louisiana or Mississippi. Clara climbed down from Thunder, trying to appear more confident than she felt. "My name is Clara Whitmore. I believe you bought a horse from Dutch Harrison 2 days ago, a chestnut mare with a white star." Cole's expression did not change, but she saw understanding flash in his eyes. "I did. Paid good money for her, too. She's well-trained, good-tempered. Why do you ask?" "Because she is mine." The words came out more forcefully than Clara had intended, or she was before my brother sold her without my permission to pay off his gambling debts. Cole was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Then he gestured toward the fire. "You have come a long way. Would you like some coffee? We can talk about this properly." Clara hesitated, then nodded. She was thirsty, and she had a feeling this conversation was not going to be quick. Cole poured coffee from a battered pot into a tin cup and handed it to her. She took it gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm metal. "I bought that mare fair and square," Cole said, settling back down by the fire. "Paid $200 for her. That is a lot of money for a horse, but she is worth it." $200. Clara felt her heart sink. She did not have anywhere near that amount. "I understand that you bought her legally," she said carefully. "But you have to understand my position. I raised Daisy from a foal. She is mine in every way that matters. My brother had no right to sell her." "Daisy?" Cole looked over at the mare, who had wandered closer to the camp as if she recognized Clara's voice. "That is her name?" "Yes." Clara set down her coffee cup and walked over to the mare. Daisy nickered softly and nuzzled Clara's hand, searching for treats. Clara felt tears prick her eyes again as she stroked the soft velvet of Daisy's nose. "Hey, girl. I have missed you so much." She heard Cole stand and walk over to join them. He was close enough that she could smell the scent of leather and wood smoke that clung to him. "She knows you," he said quietly. "I can see that." "We have been together for 6 years, Clara said, not taking her eyes off Daisy. "I was there when she was born. Her mother had a difficult labor, and I stayed up all night helping. I was the first person Daisy saw when she opened her eyes. I trained her myself, taught her everything she knows. She is not just a horse to me. She is family." There was a long silence. Clara could feel Cole watching her, could feel the weight of his gaze. Finally he spoke. "I believe you. And I'm sorry for your situation, but I cannot just give her back to you. I paid a lot of money for her, and I need good horses for my work." Clara turned to face him, her jaw set with determination. "I have $47. It is all the money I have in the world. I will give it to you, and I will work off the rest. I can cook, clean, mend clothes, tend to animals, whatever you need. Please, I am begging you. Just let me have my horse back." Cole looked at her for a long moment, and she saw something shift in his expression. Sympathy, maybe, or admiration. "You would work as a hired hand to pay off a debt for a horse?" "I would do anything," Clara said simply. "She is everything to me." Cole rubbed the back of his neck, clearly wrestling with the decision. Then he sighed. "All right, here is what I am going to do. You keep your $47. You are going to need it. I will give you back your horse, free and clear. No payment, no work. She is yours." Clara stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What?" "I do not understand." "It is not right what your brother did," Cole said, "and I can see how much she means to you. I do not want to be the man who keeps you from something you love. So she is yours. Take her home." Clara felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "But you paid $200. I know what I paid." Cole smiled slightly, and it transformed his whole face, making him look younger and less guarded. "Consider it a bad investment. It happens." "I cannot just take her," Clara protested, even though every fiber of her being wanted to do exactly that. "That would not be right. You would be losing all that money." "Then let me ask you something," Cole said, crossing his arms over his chest. "If you had $200 right now, would you give it to me and take your horse home?" "Yes," Clara said without hesitation, "in a heartbeat." "Then in your mind, you owe me $200. And someday when you have it, if you still feel like you need to pay me back, you can find me and give it to me. But I'm not going to hold you to that. As far as I am concerned, the horse is yours. That is the end of it." Clara did not know what to say. She had come here prepared to beg, to plead, to offer everything she had. She had not expected kindness. She had not expected generosity. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them, and she wiped them away quickly, embarrassed. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to me." "I think I have some idea," Cole said gently. "Now why do not you stay and have some breakfast before you ride back? I have got bacon and beans, and it is a long ride home." Clara wanted to refuse, wanted to take Daisy and leave immediately before Cole changed his mind. But her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that she had not eaten since the night before, and Cole laughed. "I will take that as a yes," he said, and went back to the fire to finish cooking. They ate in companionable silence, sitting on logs near the fire. The bacon was crispy and the beans were flavored with molasses and salt pork, and Clara thought it was one of the best meals she had ever tasted. Maybe it was just because she was so relieved, so grateful, so overwhelmed by this stranger's unexpected kindness. "Can I ask you something?" Clara said after a while. "Why are you being so generous? You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." Cole was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. "My sister died 5 years ago," he said finally. "She was about your age. She loved horses too, had a gray mare named Silver that she adored. When she got sick, when we knew she was not going to make it, she made me promise that I would take care of Silver for her. I kept that horse for 3 years after my sister passed, even though I did not really need her. I kept her because it was the last thing my sister asked of me, because that horse represented everything she loved about life." He looked up at Clara, and she saw old pain in his eyes. "Eventually I had to sell Silver. I was moving around too much, and it was not fair to the horse, but I made sure she went to a good home, to a family with children who would love her and care for her. And I have always felt good about that decision, knowing that I honored my sister's wishes in the end. I am so sorry about your sister," Clara said softly. "Thank you." Cole poked at the fire with a stick. "I guess what I am trying to say is I understand what it is like to love something that much. and I understand what it is like to lose it. If I can help you keep your horse, if I can spare you that pain, then it is worth the money I lose." Clara felt a lump form in her throat. "Your sister would be proud of you." "I hope so." Cole stood and brushed off his pants. "Now I think it is time for you to take Daisy home. She is getting restless, and I have a feeling she knows she is going back with you." Clara stood too, and impulsively stuck out her hand. "Thank you, Cole Brennan. I will never forget what you have done for me today." Cole shook her hand, his grip warm and firm. "You are welcome, Clara Whitmore. Take care of yourself, and take care of that horse." Clara was about to lead Daisy over to where Thunder was tied when Cole called out to her. "Wait a minute." She turned back, puzzled. Cole was walking toward the other two horses in his makeshift corral. They were both beautiful animals, a black stallion with a white blaze, and a dappled gray mare with intelligent eyes. "These two are from the same auction where I bought Daisy," Cole said. "I was planning to use them for a cattle drive, but I have been thinking. That ranch of yours, if your brother has been selling off everything, you probably do not have many working horses left." Clara felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "We have one old gelding, Thunder. He is a good horse, but he is getting on in years." Cole nodded thoughtfully. "A ranch cannot run on one old horse. You need young, strong animals for the work. So here is what I'm thinking. These two horses need a good home, and you need horses. What if I gave them to you?" Clara felt like all the air had been knocked out of her lungs. "You want to give me 2 more horses? No, I could not possibly accept that. You have already done too much." "Listen to me," Cole said, and there was an intensity in his eyes that made her fall silent. "I am a cattle driver. I move from place to place, taking herds north to the railroads. It is not an easy life, and it is not a life where I can keep a lot of horses. These two are good animals, but I can get more. You, on the other hand, you are trying to keep a ranch running with a brother who is working against you. You need all the help you can get." "But why would you do this?" Clara felt overwhelmed, confused by this stranger's generosity. "You do not even know me." "Maybe that is exactly why I can do it," Cole said. "I do not have any expectations. I do not want anything from you. I just see someone who needs help, and I am in a position to give it, so why would not I?" Clara looked at the two horses, then back at Cole. He was watching her with those ocean-colored eyes, and she saw nothing but sincerity in his face. "I do not know what to say." "Say you will take them. Say you will use them to rebuild your ranch and make it successful again. That is all I want to hear." "I will," Clara said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I will take them, and I will make my father's ranch successful again. I promise you that." "Good." Cole smiled that transforming smile again. "Now let me help you get them ready to travel. It is a bit of a distance back to your ranch, and you will want to take it slow with 3 horses. He helped her rig up a lead line so she could pony the 2 new horses behind Thunder. As they worked together, Clara found herself studying Cole. He was patient and gentle with the animals, speaking to them in a low, soothing voice. His hands were calloused and scarred from hard work, but they were careful and precise as he adjusted the ropes and checked the knots. "What are their names?" Clara asked, stroking the neck of the black stallion. "I have not named them yet," Cole said. "I figured whoever ended up with them should have that honor. They are your horses now. You name them." Clara looked at the black stallion, so strong and proud, and then at the gentle gray mare. "Midnight," she said, touching the stallion's nose. "And Storm," she added, running her hand down the mare's dappled flank, "because her coat looks like storm clouds." "Those are good names," Cole said approvingly. "They suit them." When everything was ready, Clara prepared to mount Thunder. Cole walked over and stood beside her. "Can I ask you something before you go?" he said. "Of course." "What are you going to do about your brother? He sold your horse once. What is to stop him from doing it again or selling these new ones?" Clara's jaw tightened. It was a question she had been avoiding thinking about, but Cole was right to ask it. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I will figure something out. I have to." If you need help, Cole said slowly, if things get bad, the Silver Creek area is good grazing land. I will probably be camping around here for another week or so before I move on. You can find me if you need to. Clara looked at him. This stranger who had shown her more kindness in one morning than her own brother had shown in years. Why are you doing all this, she asked again. Really? Cole was quiet for a moment, and then he said, maybe because when my sister was dying, a stranger showed us kindness when we needed it most. A doctor who treated her for free because he could see we did not have money. He could not save her, but he made her last days easier. I have never forgotten that. I guess I am just trying to pass it forward. Clara felt tears sting her eyes again. You are a good man, Cole Brennan. I try to be. He stepped back. Now get going before it gets too hot. Take the creek road back. It is a little longer, but it is easier on the horses. Clara nodded and mounted Thunder. With Daisy, Midnight, and Storm trailing behind on the lead line, she started toward home. She looked back once and saw Cole standing by his fire watching her go. He raised his hand in farewell, and she waved back. Then she turned her face toward home and did not look back again. The ride home seemed shorter than the ride out, maybe because Clara's heart was so full of joy and relief. She kept turning in the saddle to look at Daisy, to make sure she was really there, that this was not all a dream. The 3 horses followed calmly behind Thunder, and Clara found herself planning where she would put them in the barn, what work she could assign them, how they would help her get the ranch back on its feet. Thomas was in the yard when she arrived, chopping wood with more energy than she had seen from him in months. He looked up at the sound of horses, and his eyes widened when he saw what Clara was leading. Clara? Where did you get those horses? I got Daisy back, Clara said, dismounting. She began unhitching the lead line, keeping her voice carefully neutral. And I acquired 2 more, Midnight and Storm. Thomas set down the axe and walked closer, looking confused. How? I thought you only had $47. I did not pay for them. Clara led Daisy toward the barn, and the mare walked willingly, happy to be home. A man named Cole Brennan gave them to me. Gave them to you? Why would he do that? Because he's a good man. Clara tied Daisy in her old stall, and the mare immediately started munching on the fresh hay she found there. Because he understood what Daisy meant to me, and because he wanted to help. Thomas stood in the doorway of the barn, watching as Clara settled the other 2 horses into stalls as well. Clara, I really am sorry about what I did. I know I have been a terrible brother. I know I have let you down and let Papa down, but I am going to change. I swear it. Clara turned to face him, and her expression was hard. I have heard that before, Thomas. Many times. Why should I believe you now? Because I saw how much pain I caused you, Thomas said. And for the first time, there was genuine remorse in his voice. And when you came back yesterday and you looked at me like you hated me, it made me realize what I have become, what I have done to our family. I do not want to be that person anymore. Words are cheap, Clara said bluntly. I need to see actions. I need to see you work this ranch, stay away from the saloon, and stop gambling. If you can do that, if you can prove to me that you have changed, then maybe we can rebuild what we have lost. But if you go back to your old ways, Thomas, I swear to you, I will leave. I will take these horses and I will go somewhere else and start over. I will not stand by and watch you destroy everything Papa built. Thomas nodded, his face serious. I understand, and I will prove it to you, starting today. Clara wanted to believe him. Part of her still loved her brother, still remembered the boy he had been before gambling and drinking had consumed him. But another part of her, the part that had learned hard lessons about trust and disappointment, remained skeptical. She would have to wait and see if Thomas could keep his promises. Over the next few days, Clara was surprised to find that Thomas did seem to be making an effort. He stopped going into town every night. He helped her repair the fence in the south pasture. He even started talking about plans for the ranch, ideas for how they could start rebuilding their herd. Clara allowed herself to feel a small glimmer of hope. Maybe things could get better. Maybe they could find their way back to being a family again. But even as she worked alongside Thomas, even as she began to see signs of improvement, Clara found her thoughts drifting to Cole Brennan. She thought about his quiet kindness, his generous spirit, the way he had understood without her having to explain. She thought about his ocean-colored eyes and the sadness she had seen in them when he talked about his sister. She wondered what he was doing at his camp by Silver Creek, whether he was still there or if he had moved on. On the 5th day after she had gotten Daisy back, Clara made a decision. She told Thomas she was going to check the cattle in the North Range, but instead she saddled Daisy and rode out towards Silver Creek. She told herself she was just going to thank Cole again, to tell him how much his gift had meant and how it was helping her rebuild the ranch. But deep down she knew there was more to it than that. She wanted to see him again. She wanted to talk to him, to hear his voice, to understand more about this man who had changed her life with a simple act of kindness. When she reached the spot where Cole's camp had been, her heart sank. The area was empty. The fire pit was cold and scattered. The tent was gone, and there was no sign of Cole or his remaining horses. He had moved on, just as he said he would. Clara sat on Daisy for a long moment, staring at the empty space and feeling an unexpected sense of loss. It was foolish, she told herself. She had only met the man once, had spent only a few hours in his company. There was no reason for her to feel this way. But as she turned Daisy toward home, Clara could not shake the feeling that something important had slipped through her fingers. She had not even gotten a chance to properly thank Cole, to tell him what his kindness had meant. She had not gotten to know him better, to hear more of his story, to understand the man behind the generous gesture. And now he was gone, disappeared into the vastness of Texas, and she had no way of finding him. The next few weeks passed in a blur of hard work. Clara and Thomas worked from dawn to dusk, repairing buildings, mending fences, and preparing for the fall cattle season. The 3 new horses proved invaluable, strong, and willing workers who made every task easier. Clara found herself talking to Daisy in the evenings as she brushed her coat, telling the mare about her days and her worries and her secret thoughts about the cowboy who had given her back. "I wish I could see him again," she confessed to Daisy one night, "just to thank him properly, just to know he is all right." "Do you think that is silly?" Daisy nickered softly and nuzzled Clara's shoulder, and Clara laughed. "You are right, it is silly. He's probably hundreds of miles from here by now, living his life and not thinking about us at all. I should just be grateful for what he did and move on." But moving on proved harder than she expected. She found herself scanning the horizon whenever she rode out to check the cattle, looking for a tall figure with dark hair and ocean-colored eyes. She found herself riding by Silver Creek more often than necessary, hoping against hope that she might see his camp set up again, that he might have come back. But the creek remained empty except for the occasional deer coming to drink, and Clara eventually forced herself to stop looking. Thomas continued to stay true to his word, staying away from the saloon and focusing on the ranch. Clara watched him carefully, waiting for him to slip back into his old habits, but as the weeks turned into a month, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he really had changed. They fell into a routine that was almost comfortable, working together during the day and spending quiet evenings on the porch, talking about their plans for the future. "I think we should try to buy some new breeding stock in the spring," Thomas said one evening as they watched the sunset. "If we can build up our herd, we could sell cattle next fall and really start to turn a profit." Clara nodded, pleased that Thomas was thinking ahead. "We would need to save every penny between now and then, no unnecessary expenses." "I know." Thomas looked at her seriously. "And Clara, I want you to know I really am grateful for the second chance you are giving me. I know I do not deserve it after what I did." "You are my brother," Clara said simply. "We are all each other has left. I want us to succeed." "We will," Thomas promised. "I will make sure of it." That night, Clara lay in bed and thought about how much had changed in just a few weeks. She had Daisy back, plus 2 more horses. Thomas seemed to be reforming. The ranch was starting to feel like a home again instead of a burden. Everything should have been perfect, but there was still a small ache in her heart, a sense of something missing. And she knew, though she tried not to admit it to herself, that the missing piece was Cole Brennan. Another week passed, and then one afternoon, as Clara was working in the garden, pulling weeds and watering the vegetable plants, she heard the sound of a horse approaching. She looked up, shading her eyes against the sun, and her heart stopped. Riding toward the ranch on a bay gelding, leading a pack horse behind him, was Cole Brennan. Clara stood frozen for a moment, unable to believe her eyes. Then she dropped her gardening tools and walked quickly toward him, her pulse racing. Cole saw her and smiled, that same warm smile that transformed his face, and Clara felt something flutter in her chest. "Hello, Clara," he said as he reined in his horse. "I hope you do not mind me dropping by unannounced." "Cole, I thought you had left. I went to Silver Creek a few weeks ago and your camp was gone." Clara realized she was babbling and forced herself to slow down. "What are you doing here?" "I did leave for a while," Cole said, dismounting. "I had a job driving a herd up to Fort Worth. But when it was done, I found myself riding back this way. I wanted to see how you were doing, how the horses were working out." Clara could not stop smiling. "They are wonderful. Midnight is strong as an ox, and Storm is so clever. They have made everything so much easier. Thomas and I have been able to get so much work done." "I'm glad to hear it." Cole looked around at the ranch, taking in the repaired fences and freshly painted barn. "The place looks good. You have been busy." "We have." Clara felt suddenly shy, aware that her dress was dusty and her hair was falling out of its braid. "Would you like to come inside, have some water or coffee?" "I would like that very much." Clara led him toward the house, and Thomas came out to see who had arrived. His face showed surprise when he saw Cole. "You must be the man who gave Clara the horses." "Cole Brennan." Cole extended his hand and Thomas shook it. "Thomas Whitmore, I want to thank you for what you did. It was very generous." "Your sister earned it," Cole said simply. "Anyone who loves a horse that much deserves to have it." Inside the house, Clara busied herself making coffee and setting out some cornbread she had baked that morning. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she had to force herself to stay calm. Cole was here. He had come back. She did not know what it meant, but she knew it made her happier than she had been in weeks. They sat at the kitchen table and Clara poured coffee for everyone. Thomas asked Cole about his work, and Cole talked easily about his life as a cattle driver, the places he had been, the things he had seen. Clara listened, fascinated by the stories of vast herds moving across the plains, of river crossings and stampedes and nights spent under the stars. "It sounds exciting, Nevam," Thomas said. "Do you ever get tired of moving around so much?" "Sometimes," Cole admitted. "There are times when I wish I had a place to call home, a piece of land that was mine. But the work pays well, and I have not found anything I wanted to settle down for." His eyes flicked to Clara as he said this, and she felt her cheeks warm. Thomas excused himself after a while, saying he needed to check on something in the barn, and Clara suspected he was giving her and Cole some time alone. She appreciated it, even as it made her nervous. "Can I show you around the ranch?" Clara asked, "so you can see what your horses have been helping us accomplish?" "I would like that." They walked out into the warm afternoon sunshine, and Clara showed Cole the repairs they had made, the garden they had expanded, the new chicken coop Thomas had built. Cole listened and asked questions, and Clara found herself talking more freely than she had in years, sharing her dreams for the ranch and her hopes for the future. "You have done an amazing job," Cole said, as they stood looking out over the south pasture where Daisy, Midnight, and Storm were grazing with Old Thunder. "Your father would be proud." "I hope so." Clara watched the horses for a moment, then turned to Cole. "Can I ask you something? Why did you really come back?" Cole was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was serious. "Honestly, I could not stop thinking about you. About that morning at Silver Creek, the way you were willing to do anything to get your horse back, your determination, your courage, your love for something beyond yourself. I have been a lot of places and met a lot of people, Clara, but I have never met anyone quite like you." Clara's breath caught in her throat. Cole, I know I have no right to say this, Cole continued. I'm just a drifter, a man with no home and no real prospects, but I wanted to see you again. I wanted to know if maybe, just maybe, what I felt that morning was something real and not just my imagination. Clara looked up at him, at his honest, open face, and felt something shift inside her. It was not your imagination, she said softly. I have been thinking about you too. Every day since you left, I went to Silver Creek hoping to find you, to thank you again. And when you were gone, I felt like I had lost something important. Cole reached out and gently took her hand, his calloused fingers wrapping around hers. Then maybe I did not ride back here for nothing. They stood there for a long moment, hands clasped, looking into each other's eyes. Clara felt like the world had narrowed down to just the two of them, to this moment, to the feeling of his hand holding hers. Then Cole smiled, breaking the spell, and Clara laughed with pure joy. This is crazy, she said. I barely know you. Then let me stay for a while, Cole said. Let me help you and Thomas with the ranch work. Let us get to know each other properly, and then we can see where this goes. You would do that? Stay here? I do not have anywhere else I need to be, Cole said. My next job is not until spring. I could use a place to stay for the winter, and you could probably use an extra hand around here. It seems like it would work out well for both of us. Clara felt a surge of happiness so strong it almost overwhelmed her. I would like that very much. Then it is settled. Cole squeezed her hand gently before letting go. Now why do not you show me what needs to be done around here, and I will get started? The next few months were some of the happiest of Clara's life. Cole set up his tent near the barn at first, insisting he did not want to impose, but within a week, Thomas had cleared out a small storage room and turned it into a bedroom for him. Cole was a tireless worker, up before dawn and working until after dark. He knew everything there was to know about horses and cattle, and he taught Clara and Thomas techniques they had never learned. But more than his work, Clara treasured the time she spent with Cole in the evenings. After supper, they would often walk together, talking about everything and nothing. Cole told her about his childhood in Louisiana, how his family had lost everything in the war, how he had taken to the trail to make his fortune. Clara told him about her father, about growing up on the ranch, about the dreams she had for the future. I want this place to be successful, she said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the stars come out. Not just for me, but for my father's memory. He worked so hard to build this ranch. I want to honor that. You already are, Cole said gently. Every day you honor him by not giving up, by fighting to keep this place going. He would be so proud of you. Clara leaned her head on Cole's shoulder, and he put his arm around her. They sat like that for a long time, comfortable in the silence, feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Clara knew she was falling in love with him, and the knowledge both thrilled and terrified her. She had never felt this way about anyone before, had never imagined that someone could make her feel so safe and so excited all at the same time. As fall turned to winter, Cole became an integral part of life on the ranch. Thomas liked and respected him, often asking his advice on ranch matters. The horses thrived under his care, growing sleek and strong. And Clara found herself waking up each morning with a sense of anticipation, knowing she would see Cole's smile at breakfast, hear his voice during the day, feel his hand in hers as they walked in the evening. One cold December night, as they sat by the fire in the house, Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper. I have something for you, Rear, he said, handing it to Clara. Clara unwrapped it carefully and gasped when she saw what was inside. It was a beautiful, hand-carved wooden horse, small enough to fit in her palm, every detail perfect. Cole, this is beautiful. Did you make this? I have been working on it in the evenings, Cole admitted. I wanted to give you something special, something to remind you of Daisy and of the day we met. Clara traced the delicate carving with her finger, blinking back tears. This is the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me. Clara. Cole took her hands in his. I know we have not known each other very long, just a few months, but in that time, you have become the most important person in my world. I love you. I love your strength and your determination and your kind heart. I love the way you talk to the horses and the way you look at the sunset. I love everything about you. Clara felt tears spill down her cheeks. I love you too. I think I started falling for you the moment you said I could have Daisy back. I have never met anyone like you. Cole, you make me want to be brave. Cole cupped her face in his hands and kissed her gently. It was Clara's first kiss, and it was everything she had imagined and more. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. Marry me, Cole said. I know I do not have much to offer. I'm still just a cowboy with more debts than assets. But I will work hard every day of my life to make you happy. I will help you build this ranch into something your father would be proud of. I will love you and honor you and stand by your side through whatever comes. Say you will marry me, Clara. Clara did not even have to think about it. Yes, yes, I will marry you. They were married on a cold January day in 1879 in the small church in San Antonio, with Thomas standing as witness. Clara wore her mother's wedding dress, which she had carefully altered to fit, and Cole wore a new suit he had bought specially for the occasion. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Clara felt like her heart might burst with happiness. The winter passed in a happy blur. Clara moved her things into the small room that had become Cole's, and they began their life together as husband and wife. Cole continued to work the ranch during the day, and at night they would lie in bed and talk about their dreams. Cole wanted to expand the ranch, maybe buy some of the adjacent land. Clara wanted to breed horses, using Daisy and Storm and Midnight as foundation stock. Together they planned and schemed and dreamed. Thomas continued to stay sober and focused, and Clara was grateful to see her brother finally becoming the man their father had hoped he would be. He seemed genuinely happy for Clara and Cole, and the three of them worked together to make the ranch profitable again. In the spring, Cole used some of his savings to buy a small herd of cattle, and they spent the summer caring for them and watching them grow. It was hard work, but it was satisfying work, and Clara loved every minute of it. She loved working alongside her husband, loved watching him gentle a wild horse or rope a stray calf. She loved the life they were building together. In September, Clara realized she was pregnant. She told Cole on a warm evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Cole's face lit up with joy, and he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. "We are going to have a baby," he kept saying, as if he could not quite believe it. "We are going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Clara asked, even though she could see the answer in his face. "Happy? Clara, I am more than happy. I am overjoyed. I am going to be a father." He kissed her soundly. "This is the best news I have ever received." Thomas was equally thrilled when they told him, already planning all the ways he would be the best uncle in Texas. The next few months were filled with preparation and anticipation. Cole built a beautiful wooden cradle during the long winter evenings, carving it with the same care he had used for the little horse he had given Clara. Clara sewed baby clothes and blankets, her heart full of love for the child she had not yet met. Their son was born on a warm May morning in 1880, and they named him Samuel after Clara's father. He was a healthy baby with Cole's dark hair and Clara's gray eyes, and Clara thought he was the most perfect thing she had ever seen. Cole was a devoted father from the first moment, holding his son with gentle care and singing him soft songs in the middle of the night when he fussed. Life settled into a new rhythm with the baby. Clara found that motherhood came naturally to her, and she loved every moment of it, even the exhausting ones. Cole continued to work the ranch but always made time for his family, coming in from the fields to hold Samuel or play with him or just sit and watch him sleep. By the time Samuel was a year old, the ranch was thriving. The cattle herd had grown, and they had sold several horses bred from their foundation stock for good prices. Clara and Cole talked about buying more land, expanding their operations. Thomas had met a nice woman in town, the daughter of the general store owner, and had started courting her seriously. Everything seemed to be falling into place. One evening, as they sat on the porch with Samuel playing at their feet, Cole turned to Clara. "Do you remember the day we met? When you rode into my camp at Silver Creek?" "Of course I remember," Clara said. "It was the day my life changed." "Mine too." Cole reached over and took her hand. "Sometimes I think about how easily we might have missed each other. If your brother had not sold Daisy, if I had not bought her, if you had not come looking for her that morning, so many things had to happen just right for us to meet." "I used to hate my brother for what he did," Clara admitted. "But now, I think maybe it was meant to happen. Maybe we were supposed to meet. Maybe Daisy was always meant to bring us together," Cole smiled. "I like that idea, that it was all part of a bigger plan." Samuel toddled over to his father, and Cole scooped him up, making the little boy giggle. Clara watched them together and felt a profound sense of contentment. This was her family, this was her life, and it was better than anything she could have imagined. When Samuel was 2, Clara had another baby, a daughter they named Emily Rose. She had Cole's blue-green eyes and a sunny disposition that charmed everyone she met. Cole was just as devoted to his daughter as he was to his son, and Clara often found him in the nursery, talking to Emily as if she could understand every word, telling her about the horses and the ranch and all the things he would teach her when she was older. The years passed in a happy progression. Samuel grew into a curious, energetic boy who loved the horses just as much as his mother did. Emily was more cautious, but just as loving, often following her older brother around the ranch. Thomas married his sweetheart and moved into town, but he visited often and remained involved in the ranch operations. By 1885, the Whitmore-Brennan Ranch had become one of the most successful in the area. They had a large herd of cattle, a thriving horse breeding program, and enough hired hands to manage the work. Clara often thought about how far they had come from that terrible morning when she had discovered Daisy was gone. How much had changed, how much they had built. One afternoon, as Clara was working in the garden with Emily playing nearby, a rider approached. Clara shaded her eyes and saw that it was a young man, probably in his early 20s, leading a beautiful Palomino mare. "Excuse me, ma'am," the young man said, tipping his hat. "I'm looking for Cole Brennan. Is he around?" "He's out in the south pasture," Clara said, standing and dusting off her hands. "Can I help you with something?" "My name is Jake Morrison. I bought this mare at an auction last week, and when I asked about her history, they told me she came from this ranch originally. They said she was bred here, and that if I had any questions, I should talk to Cole Brennan." Clara smiled. "That's right, we bred her mother, Storm. She is one of our foundation mares. What a beautiful animal. You made a good choice." "Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to meet the people who bred such a fine horse and learn a little more about her lineage." Clara called for one of the hands to fetch Cole, and when he arrived, he greeted Jake warmly and spent the next hour talking to him about the mare and her bloodlines. Watching them, Clara was struck by how much her life had changed. She had built something real here, something lasting. She and Cole had created a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. That evening, after the children were in bed, Clara and Cole took their usual walk around the property. It was something they had done almost every night for the past 7 years, and Clara treasured this quiet time with her husband. They walked hand in hand, comfortable in the silence, watching the stars come out. "I have been thinking," Cole said as they reached the creek that ran through the property, "about how we started. About that morning when you rode into my camp with nothing but $47 and a whole lot of determination." Clara laughed. "I was desperate. I would have done anything to get Daisy back." "I know. That is what I loved about you even then. Your fierce loyalty, your refusal to give up. You taught me something that day, Clara. You taught me that some things are worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, and you made me want to be the kind of man who fights for what matters." Clara stopped walking and turned to face him. "You gave me back more than just my horse that day, Cole. You gave me hope. You showed me that there was still goodness in the world, that people could be kind for no reason except that it was the right thing to do. You changed my life." "We changed each other's lives," Cole said, pulling her close, "and I would not change a single moment of it." They stood there by the creek, wrapped in each other's arms, and Clara thought about all the moments that had led them to this place, the heartbreak of losing Daisy, the miracle of getting her back, the slow building of love and trust, the joy of their children, the success of their ranch. It had not always been easy, but it had been worth it. Every struggle, every challenge, every moment of doubt had led them here, to this life they had built together. As the years continued to pass, the ranch grew and prospered. Samuel grew into a fine young man who loved working with the horses, showing the same gentle patience with them that his father had. Emily became an excellent rider and helped her mother with the breeding program. Cole and Clara aged gracefully together, their love deepening with each passing year. Thomas remained close to the family, and his children often came to visit the ranch, learning to ride on the descendants of Daisy, Midnight, and Storm. It pleased Clara to see how their legacy had grown, how one act of kindness had rippled outward to touch so many lives. One evening when Clara was in her 50s and her hair was beginning to show threads of silver, she and Cole sat on the porch watching their grandchildren play in the yard. Samuel had married a few years earlier and had 2 children of his own, and Emily was courting a nice young rancher from a neighboring property. "Do you ever regret it?" Clara asked Cole. "Giving up your life on the trail to settle here?" Cole looked at her with surprise. "Regret it? Clara, settling here with you was the best decision I ever made. I have a home, a family, a purpose. What more could a man want?" "I just know you love the freedom of the trail," Clara said, "and the adventure of it." "I did," Cole admitted. "But Clara, the greatest adventure of my life has been loving you. Watching you become a mother, seeing you build this ranch into something extraordinary, growing old with you. That has been worth more than all the cattle drives and all the freedom in the world." Clara leaned over and kissed him, just as she had on that first night he told her he loved her all those years ago. "I love you, Cole Brennan. And I love you, Clara Brennan. Always have, always will." As the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Clara thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with loss and betrayal, with a brother's weakness and a beloved horse sold to pay gambling debts. But it had led to love, to family, to a life richer than she had ever imagined possible. Daisy had passed away peacefully a few years earlier, at the good old age of 23, surrounded by her descendants. Clara had cried when they buried her in the small grove of trees behind the barn, but they were tears of gratitude as much as grief. That horse had been the catalyst for everything good in her life. Without Daisy, she never would have ridden to Silver Creek that morning. Without Daisy, she never would have met Cole. Without Daisy, none of this extraordinary life would have been possible. And it had all come about because of one cowboy's kindness, because Cole Brennan had seen a desperate young woman and chosen to help her, not because he had to, but because it was right. That one choice, that one moment of generosity had changed both their lives forever. As Clara sat on the porch with her husband's arm around her, watching their grandchildren play and their horses graze in the pasture, she felt a deep sense of peace. This was where she was meant to be. This was the life she was meant to live. And it had all started with 3 horses, 1 lost, 1 returned, and 2 given freely out of the goodness of a stranger's heart. The ranch continued to thrive for many years. Samuel took over the day-to-day operations as Cole and Clara grew older, but they remained active and involved, always ready with advice or help when needed. Emily married her rancher and moved to the neighboring property, but she visited often, and her children learned to ride on horses bred from the original stock. Cole and Clara celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary surrounded by family and friends. The party was held in the big barn, which had been decorated with ribbons and flowers. There was music and dancing and more food than anyone could eat. As Clara danced with her husband, she looked around at all the people gathered there. People whose lives had been touched in some way by the ranch, by the horses, by the love she and Cole shared. "This is perfect," she whispered to Cole. "Everything I ever wanted." "Me too," Cole said, holding her close. "Me too." They continued dancing as the sun set and the lanterns were lit, surrounded by love and laughter. And somewhere in the pasture, the descendants of Daisy and Midnight and Storm grazed peacefully under the stars, living proof that kindness and love could create something lasting and beautiful. Years later, when Clara was in her 70s, she sat on the porch with her great-grandchildren gathered around her feet. They always begged her to tell them stories, and her favorite story to tell was about how she had met their great-grandfather. "It was a long time ago," she would begin, and the children would lean in close, eager to hear the tale again. "I had a horse named Daisy, the most beautiful chestnut mare you ever saw, and one day my brother did something very foolish. He sold Daisy to pay off his gambling debts." The children would gasp dramatically, even though they had heard the story many times before. "I was heartbroken," Clara continued. "I thought I would never see my beloved horse again, but I was determined to try, so I rode out to find the man who had bought her, a cowboy named Cole Brennan." "That is great-grandpa," one of the children would inevitably shout, and Clara would smile. "That is right. And when I found him, I offered him all the money I had, which was not very much. But your great-grandfather did something amazing. He did not just sell Daisy back to me, he gave her to me, free and clear. And he gave me 2 more horses as well to help me rebuild our ranch." "Because he loved you," another child would say. "Well, maybe he did not know it yet," Clara said gently. "But I think perhaps he was starting to, and I was starting to love him too, though I did not realize it at the time. That act of kindness, that generosity, it changed both our lives forever. It brought us together and gave us this wonderful family, this beautiful ranch, all of you precious children." The story never got old, no matter how many times she told it. And the children never tired of hearing it, of imagining their great-grandmother as a young woman riding out to save her horse, of picturing their great-grandfather as a cowboy who gave away his horses because it was the right thing to do. Cole passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78. Clara held his hand as he slipped away, her heart breaking even as she felt grateful for every moment they had shared. They had been married for 46 years, and every single one of those years had been a gift. At the funeral, Clara stood strong, supported by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She spoke about the man Cole had been, about his kindness and generosity and unwavering love. She spoke about how he had changed her life with a simple act of compassion, and how that compassion had rippled outward to touch so many people. "He was the best man I ever knew," Clara said, her voice steady despite her grief, "and I was blessed beyond measure to be his wife." Clara lived for another 5 years after Cole's death. She remained active on the ranch until the very end, still riding horses and checking on the cattle, even in her 80s. She said it kept her young, kept her connected to the life she and Cole had built together. On a warm spring morning, much like the morning she had ridden to Silver Creek all those years ago, Clara passed away in her sleep. She was 83 years old, and she died peacefully, a smile on her face. Samuel found her that morning and wept, even as he gave thanks for his mother's long and happy life. They buried Clara next to Cole in the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the ranch. The entire community turned out for the funeral, testament to the impact Clara and Cole had made on the world around them. Samuel spoke about his mother's strength and determination, about how she had built a legacy that would continue for generations. Emily spoke about her mother's love, how it had shaped and guided her throughout her life. And after the funeral, as the family gathered back at the ranch house, Samuel's oldest son went out to the pasture where the horses grazed. Among them was a beautiful chestnut mare, great-great-granddaughter of the original Daisy. She had the same white star on her forehead, the same gentle eyes. The young man stroked her nose and thought about his great-grandmother, about the story of how she had ridden out to save her horse and ended up finding love. "Thank you," he whispered to the mare. Thank you for bringing them together." The mare nickered softly and nuzzled his hand, as if she understood. And perhaps in some way she did. Perhaps horses always understood more than people gave them credit for. Perhaps they knew that they were not just animals, but bridges between hearts, catalysts for love, the beginning of stories that would be told for generations. The ranch continued on, passed down through the family, always thriving, always growing. And every generation told the story of Clara and Cole, of how their love had begun with 3 horses and an act of unexpected kindness. It became part of the family lore, a reminder that goodness and generosity could change the world, that love could grow from the smallest seeds, that what seemed like an ending could actually be a beginning. And sometimes on quiet evenings when the sun was setting over the Texas hills, family members swore they could see 2 figures walking hand in hand through the pastures, checking on the horses, their laughter carried on the wind. It was just a trick of the light, of course. But it was a comforting thought, the idea that Clara and Cole were still there in spirit, still watching over the land they had loved, still together as they had been in life. The legacy they built was more than just a successful ranch or a thriving horse breeding program. It was a legacy of love and kindness, of second chances and new beginnings. It was proof that one person's choice to be generous, to be compassionate, to help someone in need, could create ripples that spread out across decades and generations. And it all started with a young woman who loved her horse, a cowboy who understood that love, and a choice to give rather than take. That choice, made on a warm morning in 1878, created a love story that lasted a lifetime and beyond, a story that would be told as long as there were descendants of Clara and Cole Brennan to tell it, as long as there were horses grazing in the pastures of their ranch, as long as there were stars in the Texas sky. It was a story about loss and recovery, about betrayal and forgiveness, about desperation and hope. But most of all, it was a story about love. The kind of love that transforms lives, that builds legacies, that lasts forever. The kind of love that begins with an act of kindness and grows into something beautiful and enduring. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift Cole Brennan had ever given Clara Whitmore. Not 3 horses, though those were precious. Not a life of prosperity, though that was wonderful. But the gift of a love so deep and true that it changed everything, that made all things possible, that proved that sometimes, when you think you have lost everything, you are actually on the verge of finding everything you never knew you needed. The ranch still stands today, generations later, a testament to what Clara and Cole built together. And if you visit on a quiet evening, if you stand in the pasture and watch the horses graze as the sun sets, you might feel something in the air, a sense of peace, of contentment, of love that has endured beyond death. That is the spirit of Clara and Cole, still present in the land they loved, still alive in the family they created, still evident in every horse that bears the bloodline of Daisy, Midnight, and Storm. They are gone, but not forgotten. Their story preserved and cherished, their love eternal. And that is exactly how it should be. Because love like theirs, love that grows from kindness and generosity, love that weathers all storms and overcomes all obstacles, love that builds something lasting and good, that kind of love never truly dies. It lives on in the hearts of those who remember, in the land that was tended with care, in the horses that carry the legacy forward. It lives on in every act of kindness, every generous gesture, every moment when someone chooses to help another person, simply because it is right. That is the true legacy of Clara and Cole Brennan. Not just a successful ranch or a happy family, but a reminder that goodness matters, that kindness changes lives, that love is always worth fighting for. And so the story ends where it began, with horses and love and the wild Texas landscape. But it is not really an ending at all. It is a continuation, a promise that the legacy will endure, that the story will be told, that the love will never fade. Clara and Cole found each other against all odds, built a life together from nothing, and created something that would last forever. That is the power of love. That is the magic of kindness. That is the legacy of a cowboy who gave a desperate young woman back her horse, and in doing so, gave her everything else as well. It is a story for the ages, a tale of the Old West, a reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of compassion can change the entire world. And as the sun sets one final time over the ranch, as the horses settle in for the night, and the stars begin to appear in the vast Texas sky, you can almost hear it, the echo of laughter, the whisper of promises made and kept, the sound of two hearts beating as one. Clara and Cole, together forever in the land they loved, in the legacy they built, in the story that will never end. That is their happily ever after, and it is perfect.